Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, relax, take your seats. It's my pleasure to welcome you all in Tallinn. I'm glad to see you all here. I hope that your travel to Tallinn has been smooth and you are all ready to productive debates and exchange of views. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, dear colleagues, I'm very happy to greet you all here in Tallinn over the past 10 months. I have had the pleasure to meet with many different delegations from your parliaments, and I could not think of a better way to conclude the Estonian presidency of the Council of European Union than by having all of you here. Dear friends, you are in a country that gained its independence 100 years ago. It was possible thanks to the strong wish to become a free, democratic and independent country. But it was also possible because the Russian Empire was mired in a fight for power and had lost its ability to wield sufficient control over its expropriated peripheries. You are in the country that lost its independence in the run-up to the World War II, when all the European countries tried to solve their problems by themselves and became isolated. Two big countries made a deal, and our independence evaporated. You are in the country that regained its independence 26 years ago. It was possible thanks to the strong wish to once again become a free, democratic and independent country. But it was also possible because of the inherent weakness of the Soviet regime and its increasing inability to wield control over its parts that had been unlawfully annexed. I'm telling you this because these lessons that we learned the hard way are crucial in understanding how we see the world from our small country like Estonia. After regaining our independence in 1991, we never had any doubt as to whether or not we should integrate with the free and democratic countries of the West. It was crucial that the countries that appreciated freedom and democracy had learned from their mistakes and had created organizations such as the European Union and NATO. We knew that in order to survive and prosper, we had to integrate, then integrate, and integrate again. It is not an overstatement, but a simple fact that integration with our friends and allies is Estonia's life insurance policy. Going beyond the fundamentals of freedom, democracy and the rule of law, I want to give you some figures to illustrate the growth that Estonia's economy has experienced since we became a member of the EU. In 2005, a year after our accession, Estonia's GDP per capita was a little more than 7,100 euros. At that time, this was 60% of the EU average. 12 years later, in 2017, Estonia's GDP per capita was more than 17,400 euros, about 75% of the European Union average. For the average Estonian worker, the gross monthly salary in 2004 was 516 euros. By 2018, it has more than doubled, currently reaching 1,221 euros per month. There is no question that the EU taxpayers have had a role in helping us to get where we are. However, it is important to realize that by doing this, the EU taxpayers have also helped themselves. That is how being a part of the world's biggest single market works. We are all better if we work together. Why I think so? In the context of the free movement of people, it is natural that many Estonians have found new opportunities in other EU countries. Studying, working, and traveling abroad enriches the lives of our people and benefits our societies as whole. Right after we joined the EU, it was perhaps normal that more people left Estonia than came here. In this regard, the year of 2015 was a turning point in our life. Since then, every year, more people have come to Estonia than have left the country. If Estonia was not a member of the European Union, I'm sure many more people would have left, and the number of the returnees would be close to zero. Dear colleagues, it is only in a stable international environment with strong and sturdy international organizations that all countries, big and small, can grow, develop, and innovate. In the 90s, not many Estonian people dreamed of becoming Europe's leading nation in digital services and e-government. However, there were many people who understood that Estonia should not waste its precious human and financial resources on creating a large public sector. Luckily for us, there were some people who tirelessly encouraged politicians and the society to invest in and start using digital solutions to make the public sector more efficient, simple, and affordable. Today, Estonia is considered to be one of the most advanced digital societies in the world. Internet voting in both local and general elections is possible since 2005. 95% of all tax declarations in Estonia are filed electronically. The process takes approximately 2 minutes. In my work as a Speaker of the Estonian Parliament, I can use the pen only a few times in a month. When it does happen, it's usually to sign a letter to one of you, my dear colleagues. In my everyday working legislative work, it's not possible. All these things are possible because the national ID card-based system allows for easy and secure identification across multiple platforms. Embracing digital solutions and e-services has become an important part of Estonian lifestyle. While the EU countries differ considerably in e-services they provide, the successful Tallinn Digital Summit in September 2017 was a proof that you share our enthusiasm and commitment to building a truly digital Europe. Dear friends, allow me to say a few words on 2 topics we are going to discuss today and tomorrow: the future of the European Union and European security and defense. During the past years, security in and around Europe has been challenged in various ways. Terrorism and conflicts not too far from our borders are examples of threats that need to be addressed by us collectively. The EU has shown remarkable ability in adjusting to changing circumstances. The European Defence Fund was launched in June 2017, followed by a landmark decision to establish an inclusive and ambitious defence cooperation, the Permanent Structured Cooperation, in December last year. While our collective defense will always remain in the hands of NATO, the creation of PESCO proves the viability of the EU in the field of defense and security. Some people wondered whether PESCO would duplicate NATO's efforts or somehow undermine the alliance. I can once again assure you that this is not the case. Estonia held the presidency of the Council of the EU when these decisions were taken, and we would never have worked on any of those projects if there would have been even a slight possibility that they could, in a way, weaken NATO. We cannot afford that. Our security is simply too important for us to do that. Dear friends, our discussion on the future of the European Union is a part of a broader effort by the EU institutions, national parliaments and governments to reflect the responsibilities that the Union ought to undertake in the years to come. It is not secret that our viewpoints in this regard differ, but I trust we will have a very honest and open debate. The EU is not just an impersonal organization with a mandate to deal with a certain set of issues. It is much more than that. It is a part of who we are as Europeans. And this is why it is critical that we do all we can to bring the Union closer to its citizens. This is why we ask you to think about how the EU could not communicate more with citizens, but to do it better. We ought to be at the forefront of this effort, as national parliaments have a special role and ability in connecting with their societies. Dear colleagues, I would like to conclude by thanking all of you for being here today, for your great cooperation during the first ever Estonian presidency of the Council of the European Union, and your contribution to strengthening our union. A century-old Estonia will continue to respect and defend our common values, and will follow through our promises. But I can assure you that we will not lose our youthful spirit, openness, and readiness to improve and grow, not just internally, but also as a member of the EU. Take it from us that freedom can never be taken for granted, but we work together to protect our values and our way of life. Then there is nothing that can break our bond and our union. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, let us proceed to the adoption of the agenda for today's meeting. There are two main topics we would like to focus on during our conference. First, the future of the European Union, and second, European security and defense. In both sessions, we will have 3 keynote speakers and plenty of time for debates, so I invite you all to be active. We will have a small break in between the discussions on the future of the European Union so that we could take our traditional family photo, how to live without a family photo. You know. The conference day today will end at 6 o'clock. In the evening, I am inviting you all to the official gala dinner in the Estonian Concert Hall, where you can enjoy good food, I hope, and along with some cultural entertainment. And tomorrow we will start at 9:30 with discussion on European security and defense. Last but not least, we have to adopt the Presidency Conclusions of the Speakers' Conference, and the conference will end tomorrow with lunch. Before we move on to adoption of the agenda, I would like to make an announcement regarding the conclusions. We had very lively discussions today at the Troika meeting, and we agreed on the compromise text that will be distributed to you shortly. The deadline for amendments for this Troika compromise text is today at 6:30 p.m. If we do not receive any amendments from you, we shall assume that you agree with the compromise text. Of course, I believe that the discussions during the adoption of the conclusions will be friendly, constructive, and we can adopt this document with happy hearts. Dear colleagues, you can request for the floor by pressing the head button on your conference unit once. I will address you when it's your turn to take the floor, and the microphone will open automatically. Please don't press any buttons then. Do you have any commandments on this agenda? I ask is somebody of my colleagues want to say about the agenda? Demetrios Silouris from Cyprus. Are your comments about agenda?
Oh. No, I just press the button to speak for the... Yeah, thank you.
Dear colleagues, as a Speaker of the Parliament, my decision is that that agenda is adopted. It's possible for you to join with me with applause. But now, dear colleagues, without any further delay, I am delighted to give the floor to the President of the European Parliament, Mr. Antonio Tajani, who has held this position since 2017. He was the first Vice President of the European Parliament from 2008 to 2014. He served as a Vice President of the European Commission. Please, Mr. Tajani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, dear Eiki, for hosting us today and tomorrow in this beautiful town. Thank you very much for your kind hospitality. We are very happy to stay all together here for a very important debate on the future of the European Union, the future of the cooperation between the national parliaments. And now, because there is the translation, allow me to speak in my mother tongue, the mother tongue of Dante Alighieri. Calispera. Da qualche mese il Parlamento europeo è diventato il luogo dove si confrontano con i 751 deputati, capi di Stato e capi di governo, con un dibattito franco ed aperto sul futuro della Unione Europea. L'altro giorno è stato con noi a Strasburgo il Presidente della Repubblica Francese Macron, prossimo ospite sarà il Primo Ministro belga Charles
Mr. Michel, Prime Minister of Belgium.
Si discuterà e si è discusso di politica estera, di
we will debate, and we did debate about foreign policy, neighborhood policy, the form of the Dublin Agreement, management of migration, protection of personal data, European Union budget, and the web tax, and of course growth and employment.
Perché ho voluto
Why
organizzare mensilmente
have I developed this plan to have monthly meetings with the heads of state and government? Because I'm absolutely convinced that the heart of the matter here, the heart of the debate on the future of Europe, on the future of 500 million men and women, is the Parliament. That is the hub. That is where we make decisions on how to change and what to do for our future. And when I say the European Parliament, and when I say European Parliament, I also mean the European parliaments, also the national parliaments of the European Union countries, because that is where the representatives of the people sit, the representatives of the citizens, and that is where our future is decided. And we have to do this by starting the most important reform of all, a return to politics. Politics has to be the place where decisions are made. Politics must draw the future, the lines for the development of the future of our peoples, because we represent our people. If politicians, as was often the case in the past in Brussels, does not play its role, bureaucrats will take over. And rather than having solutions for the major issues, we will have lots of small rules for lots of small things that give people the idea that the institution, the European institution, is playing a stifling role. We want politics to solve citizens' future, because politics has to draw the lines of our future. So I believe that this debate, the debate on the future of Europe, which is our future and the future of our children, should have as many political players involved as possible. Citizens want a more effective, more democratic union, which is able to respond to the main concerns, like unemployment, especially youth unemployment, clandestine migration, security, both internal and external. These are the three main issues, the three major issues that we have to provide responses to. And also cooperation between the representatives of citizens must be stronger. I am very happy that there's a constant dialogue between the European Parliament and the national parliaments. Maybe we should do more in that respect. Because if 80% of regulatory instruments passed by national parliaments are part of the enactment, of the transposition of EU regulations and rules, then of course there has to be a very, very close relationship, osmosis, between the national parliaments and the European parliaments. And this also means that the national parliaments have to scrutinize that we do not do not do more than we should. We should do more than just lifting a card as though we were playing a football match where the referee is saying if someone is to get a yellow card or a red card. What we need is cooperation among legislators, cooperation among lawmakers, in order to understand how we can best respond to the requirements of our citizens. And we are working very effectively, because we have established instruments of dialogue, conference of interparliamentary policies, interparliamentary conference for foreign and security policy, and the joint parliamentary scrutiny group with Europol that has been established not very long ago. And I would like to congratulate the presidencies of Estonia and Bulgaria that have done so much to develop this group. And together with the Libe Committee of the European Parliament, they have made a very, very good agreement. As regards the subsidiarity principle, in Strasbourg, the European Parliament has recently adopted a motion to improve the early warning system, a motion that was proposed by the national parliaments. And we are willing to give parliaments more time and more tools to exert your prerogatives as recognized by the treaties, and at the same time we also have to improve the capability of our legislation so that it can be more effective in providing concrete answers to 500 million people. 70 years after the beginning of the Great European Adventure, our assessment, of course, is very positive. Of course, we shouldn't fail to remember what happened during the past century. Millions of casualties, 2 world wars, dictatorships, very hard times, and our children are living in peace. We are living in peace since the end of World War II. Not to mention, of course, also the internal markets that we were able to develop, which has created millions of jobs. And not to mention also the free circulation of people. That was a huge breakthrough. Our economies have grown. Today, we are the biggest market in the world. We are together a major player worldwide, and we exchange views with Russia, China, and the US. We are able to defend the interests of 500 million people. We have trade policy, we have anti-dumping policies to defend the production in our countries. But we are also something more than the single currency, the internal market, the Central European Bank. We're more than that. We're a community of values, sometimes dormant values. But those values are the children of our history, of our civilization, of our identity. We are the only continent in the world where death penalty has been banned, the only continent in the world, I repeat, which means that human life is at the center of our policies, human life and the dignity of the human being. Now, this has always been the source of our inspiration. This has been the guiding light of our economy. In our market economy, in our social market economy, the market is an instrument to create welfare and to reduce unemployment in this continent. But we must do more.
De ennél is többet kell tennünk.
Da decidere il futuro della nostra politica attraverso il bilancio pluriennale dell'Unione Europea. Il 2 di maggio la Commissione Europea presenterà al Parlamento e poi al Consiglio.
I would like member states to talk about the future of the European Union, the future of the budget of the European Union, and the European Union's budget should be presented to the member states for a forecast of the budget after the year 2020. And then, of course, we'll introduce the various programs. What do we want from the EU budget? Do we want redistribution of money, or do we want the budget, the multi-year budget, to be the picture of the political strategy that we Europeans are developing for us? Do we want, through the multi-year budget, to face the issue of growth and unemployment? Do we want to use that budget in order to see what common agricultural policy we want? Because then we will also have to reckon with the United Kingdom that will leave the European Union, so we'll have less money. What kind of agriculture do we want? What industrial policy do we want? How do we want to invest in research and innovation? The proposal will be to redouble the present Horizon 2020. But what can we do in order to help the internationalization, the globalization of small and medium-sized enterprises? What do we want to do in order to ensure more security to our citizens? Common defense, and also, for instance, using satellite systems. So here, innovation and research are important too. Protection of our borders, common frontier, a common border guard, and faced with the migration emergency, what do we want to do? What are we going to do? We've been very active in blocking the Balkan route with an agreement which has cost Europe €6 billion to stop migration through Greece and Turkey. But we have other challenges ahead. And these are long-term challenges, because in the year 2050 we will have 2.5 billion men and women who will live in Africa. And climate change, civil wars, terrorism, famine, drought, they will push at the borders unless there is change. Millions of people will be ready to move from the south of the world to the north of the world. And how are we facing this emergency? How are we going to face this emergency without a Europe-wide strategy? I come from the south of Europe, but can it just be an Italian strategy, or a Greek strategy, or a Cyprus strategy, or a Maltese strategy, or just French, just Spanish, or should it be a European strategy? Because migration will reach Germany and the Nordic countries when there are millions of people moving across Europe. Who will have to deal with this problem? The southern countries or all European countries? That is why we need to react now. When we talk about a European plan to invest in a different way in Africa, in a new way, we do need industrial diplomacy, economic diplomacy. European know-how must reach Africa in order to let the economies of those countries grow, and we need to win the challenge against climate change, and we've got to do more. And the EU budget can be a tool to do that. And we should also put ourselves a question. Is it possible not to put our hands into the citizens' pockets in order to get a few more euros to compensate for Brexit? Do we want to mobilize more European Union's resources? I think, and I'm saying this also on behalf of the European Parliament, that we can look, for instance, at the web giants. But is it fair that the web giants pay €4 in taxes and create no jobs in Europe? And then maybe all their profits are made outside the European Union. Is it, or are transferred to somewhere else than in Europe? Is it fair that these companies are not paying taxes like European companies do? Is it fair that the cultural properties of our European Union are not protected? Is it fair that our movie industry, our cultural industry in the European Union is not protected? Because through Google it is very easy to distribute US movies, but this means that you are destroying European movie productions. Of course, it's much easier to understand a movie in English than if that movie was produced in Italian, Spanish, German, or Bulgarian. And what will happen to our cultural identity if we cannot protect it? It is an economic issue, but it is also an issue of European identity. And similarly, we are at the vanguard again in the fight against climate change. And of course, there should be a tax for the access of non-EU products into Europe when these products come from countries where the rules of the fight against climate change are not complied with. So, is it fair that our companies have to comply with very strict rules on protection of children's health? And so this means that the products have a certain price, and is it fair that those European products have to compete against products say from China, where there is no social rule, there's no compliance with social rules, no compliance with environmental rules? Maybe not just China, maybe also other countries. Maybe then we do need a European tax. for products imported from countries where these rules are not complied with. And I believe, and the European Parliament says so, that we should also be aware of financial speculation, which somehow should be taxed. Now, that's why I believe that the EU's own budget should provide an opportunity for a wide-ranging debate, for a wide-ranging discussion, not just in Brussels and Strasbourg, but also in your parliaments, a wide-ranging debate on the future of Europe, on what we want to do together for Europe. What kind of Europe do we want? And through the EU budget, then we must make the necessary changes to provide concrete and effective answers to our citizens. And the other issue that also the Estonian presidency has proposed, and I do absolutely share, is European common defense. We have made strides forward. We have signed last year in Rome a solemn agreement for common defense. The European Commission has already started a path, and we are discussing, we are exchanging views on it at the European Parliament. Are we sure that we need 28, tomorrow 27 armed forces, that all do the same things? Are we sure that the present system, the present defense system works, is effective, if we want to be a reality that has an influence on foreign policy in the world? Are we sure that, for instance, in the Middle East, we needed a different presence of Europe? In the 19th century, we used to say you can't have a foreign policy if you don't have a flag. How can you be a strong interlocutor if you don't have a military tool? A European military tool. But a European military tool means that we can save money and make our defense system, our overall defense system, more effective. We spend less than the United States. But our spending, compared to the spending in the US, bears witness that proves that there's no comparable European influence. Maybe we can save with common defense, a common defense that should be the byproduct of a common defense industry. We're saving a lot of money through our Copernicus and Galileo systems in space technology, and this, of course, strengthens these systems, strengthen European competitiveness, and we could do more also in defense. We have a defense and security industry which is the pride of our industrial policy, and that is why I believe that altogether we should start a more in-depth debate on the future of Europe, starting from the multi-year budget. Democratic discussion is key, of course, and that's why the European Parliament, which is the home of Europeans, is always open to the contributions of national assemblies, your contributions, your assessments of on European policies are always accommodated into our legislative process. We want to strengthen this project. I am happy that I'll be able to meet before the beginning of the Austrian presidency with the president of the speaker of the Austrian parliament. We should have more opportunities like this. There should be not merely formal opportunities. We need to develop a strong cooperation among representatives of the citizens if we want to bridge the gap between the institutions and the citizens. If parliaments count more, if parliaments are really at the service of citizens, if parliaments really protect the interests of citizens, then yes, we will have more people going to the polls at the next elections, the next Euro elections, and the next national elections, because turnout is key. we need to increase turnout. If citizens don't vote, the fault lies not with them, the fault lies with us. And so we must take a quality leap, and we need to work together in order and we should join efforts so that as many people, as many citizens as possible exercise the right to vote, which is the most solemn expression in the life of a parliamentary democracy. And Europe is the place where parliamentary democracy was born. We should not forget that. We should not forget our origins. We should not forget the stability, solidity of our system. And altogether, we must make this system work better in the interests of our fellow citizens, who are the ones who enabled us to sit on these chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, let us continue now with the first session on the future of the European Union. And as you see, I have invited Mr. KUCHCISKI, Marshal of the Sejm of the Republic of Poland, Mr. DANKO, Speaker of the National Council of the Slovak Republic, and Mr. De Rosa, the President of the French National Assembly, to take the floor for this session and share their views with us. Colleagues, before I give the floor to the first panelist, I'm opening the list of speakers for debate, so you can already request the floor now by pressing the head button on your conference unit once. Thank you. But now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Marek KUCHCISKI, Marshal of the Sejm of Republic of Poland. He has been member of the Sejm since 2001. From 2010 to 2015, he was a deputy speaker of the Sejm. He has also chaired 2 committees in the Sejm. Please, Mr. KUCHCISKI, the floor is yours.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you so much.
Szanowne panie i panowie przewodniczący.
Dear speakers,
Szanowni Państwo,
ladies and gentlemen,
jest dla mnie
it is
zaszczytem
an honor for me to
możliwość zabrania
be able
głosu
to take the
w panelu
floor
na temat przyszłości
within
Unii
this panel
Europejskiej.
focusing on the
I
future of the
serdecznie
European
dziękuję
Union, and I
panu
wish to
Eiki,
thank Mr.
Nestorowi
Eiki, NESTOR,
za ten
for
przywilej.
this privilege.
Pan przewodniczący Tajani
President
zwrócił
Tajani
uwagę na kilka,
has
wydaje mi się,
raised, I
zasadniczych
think,
kwestii,
some
które
significant issues
przed którymi będziemy
that
stawać
we
w
will be
najbliższych
facing
dekadach,
in the
a nie wiem,
coming
czy przypadkiem w
decades
niektórych
or maybe
sprawach
even
w najbliższych
in the
pokoleniach
coming
przyszłości.
generations.
Bo to, że inicjatywa musi
The
należeć
fact
do
that the
polityków, to
initiative
wszyscy
is
zgodzimy
up to
się.
the politicians, I think we will all agree. Politics abhors vacuums, so no one can replace us. The EU budget, I fully agree, it should be changed. I think it should be increased, and I will speak about this later on. But I think another important matter is ahead of us. I think it's a generational issue. It's the drinking water problem as a strategic resource, not only in Europe, but worldwide. And I think that this is one of the major reasons that is common for us in the Mediterranean region and common for all the continents at the Mediterranean Sea. Yes, the European defense community, listening to Speaker Nestor, I think I can say that the compromise about renewing the EU should be concluded between the states, and it should be concluded because of Russian imperialism. And we should do it before it's too late. And I think that this is the experience of all Central Europe after the Second World War. As regards the future of the European Union, I have a few comments that I would like to make, taking into account the role and the importance of national parliaments. The overarching objective should should be, and I think we'll all agree on this, the European Union's democratic renewal. In Poland, my homeland, my country, cares about the European Union's success. We do see its imperfections and the need for reform. However, for us, the outcome of being a member of the European Union is very much positive. However, the European project has to be rooted in the political reality of member states. It cannot be dissociated from true communities, that is, national democracies. Poland, within the EU's reform plan, postulates, among others, to strengthen the role of national parliaments, as they play a fundamental role for at least two reasons. First, they have the democratic legitimacy, in my opinion, much greater than any other international organization, and this stems from the electoral turnout. They are also the space of political communication between European institutions and European residents. In 2016 in Luxembourg, you saw the declaration of the European states, solidary states, which says that our cooperation should be based on 4 pillars that we basically recalled. It is the sovereignty of the national states, solidarity and equality of all nations, respect for human rights, and democracy and rule of law. We also talked about current challenges that the European Union is facing, such as improving security, agreement in the matter of migratory policy, balanced development of Europe, we say sustainable development as well, strengthening the role of member states' parliaments, and rationalizing the role of European institutions on the basis of subsidiarity and proportionality. In my opinion, these postulates remain current. We cannot solve these problems in an elitary group of several states or against the will of citizens of member states. This is why I think that the projects that were prepared by different groups that suggested the division of the EU, such projects like Hardcore Community, Multi-Speed Europe, I think of all these projects in a negative way. The key to the success of the European Union lies in restoring the citizens' trust. This trust will grow when the European institutions treat all of member states equally, and when they act in accordance with the competences that were granted to them and provided for by the treaties. And this means that we have to respect the right of every member state to conduct internal reforms within the framework of its national competences. Poland is an example of a state towards which the European institutions abuse of their competences and do not respect this important role. We have to restore the proper place of subsidiarity and proportionality. The European Union institutions should only take action in those fields where their activity is more beneficial for member states. In this context, it is key to stress the postulates and the activities that aim at strengthening the role of national parliaments. I do welcome the adoption by the European Parliament of the so-called Rangel report on the 19th of April this year. I agree with the thesis presented in this report that it is important to strengthen the democratic It is important to strengthen the supervision over the Union's legislative process. This supervision should be exercised by national parliaments. At the same time, I would like to stress that so far one of the chief postulates in the context of expanding democratic legitimacy was to foster the position of the European Parliament as the only EU institution originating from general and direct elections. And yes, I fully agree with this. However, regrettably, a regular decrease in election turnout to this Parliament, European Parliament, is a proof of gradually growing shortage of democracy across the European Union and a drop in citizens' trust therein. Making the European Parliament stronger should not be the only remedy for these phenomena, because this mechanism, as we see, simply does not work. And I think it is also, we see the proof of that in the migratory crisis. So there is a wave of Euroscepticism and growing public opinion disapproval for decisions passed by the Commission and the European Parliament. These decisions relate to vital interests and values important to Member States and European nations. Studies have proven that 60% of Europeans are in favor of shifting selected EU competences to the national level, whether it concerns governments or parliaments. Let me recall you, in 1979, the average electoral turnout was 63%. As when we speak about the European Parliament in 2014, it's 43%. In some states, it is roughly above 10%. In my homeland, in Poland, only 20%. It is of 20%, whereas the turnout for elections to national parliaments is 3 times higher. So national parliaments have a link with the European Commission while implementing the subsidiarity rule through the early warning system. However, this mechanism, the so-called yellow and orange cards, is inoperable. All cases of using the yellow card are ineffective. This is my comment addressed to the European Commission. Therefore, I do support the postulate to improve this mechanism of yellow card as proposed by the COSAC conference. Some of these postulates require no treaty amendments. We also have to bring back into the discussion the debate on the implementation of red and green cards. The red card, in my opinion, could strengthen the national parliament's democratic supervision over EU's legislative process, the so-called veto right concerning the lawmaking process in the European Union. This is raised in the agreement from 2016, the EU agreement with the United Kingdom, and this was something suggested by the European Union. And if the UK had not left the EU, it had not made the decision to leave the EU, I'm sure we would have finalized this agreement, and this is a mechanism that allows to block the EU's legislative process. It is worth considering seriously the implementation of a green card procedure, that is a legislative initiative procedure for national parliaments, which would also strengthen the cooperation between national parliaments and the European Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, generally speaking, we are dealing with a situation in which, on the one hand, we see the need to maintain the sovereignty of member states, and on the other, we see the need for group action. And I think that the best solution would be, within the framework of this group action or collective action, to take into account the interest of each of the member states, as far as this is possible. And here I would like to present to you 2 fundamental questions. These questions should help us find the best recipe and the best method to strengthen the role of national parliaments within the EU. First, are we ready to start a debate concerning the amendments to the EU treaties, or should we rather strive to employ the current legislative solutions in order to strengthen the role of national parliaments in the European Union? And the second question question, is it possible within the currently binding treaties, is it possible to improve the use of subsidiarity and proportionality rules in a way to strengthen the role of national parliaments and their impact on the EU law as submitted and presented by the European Commission? Just at the end, I would like to add the following issues that should be solved. Strengthen the position of the member states, for example, recognize that the European Union is a union of sovereign states. Sovereignty, understood by me as being the most important value, we need to specify the catalogue of values being at the basis of the European Union. And here I would suggest considering the return to its Christian sources. We need to specify the issue of national identity and its protection and the introduction of loyal cooperation as a rule imposing duties on EU institutions towards the member states. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that the solution to the problems that we are facing can be found easily. It is within the reach of our conference, member states, and our conference. And I do believe that the EU is not only the outcome of a union of values, but of a well-understood interest, common interest of all member states. Again, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. KUCHCISKI. And our next speaker will be Mr. Andrej DANKO. He has been Speaker of the Slovak National Council since 2016, and before that he became the Chairman of the Slovak National Party. Please, Mr. DANKO, the floor is yours.
Vážený pán predseda Európskeho parlamentu, pán TAJANI, vážený pán NESTOR.
President of the European Parliament, Mr. TAJANI, Mr. NESTOR, dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, dear colleagues, I would like to address you like this because a year ago I presided a similar conference in Bratislava. Thank you, Mr. NESTOR, for a warm welcome. I'm very glad that 1 year ago we met at the same meeting in Bratislava, and today we are meeting in Tallinn at a meeting, high-level meeting, reflecting the national presidency of or the parliamentary dimension of the national presidencies of the Council of the European Union. First of all, I would like to thank our Estonian hosts and Mr. NESTOR for a wonderful organization of this year's meeting. I believe that only a sincere and open dialogue will help us move forward toward improving our European Union. I appreciate that the difficult topics in our discussions are always addressed in a pragmatic, objective manner, taking into consideration the legitimate interests of our citizens and the role of national parliaments. Discussing the role of the European Union means that we have to address several topics like Brexit, changing global environment, security issues, the protection of borders, common defense, migration, youth unemployment, or offsetting social disparities, as well as the role of national parliaments and changes in the inner arrangements of the European Union. We are living in turbulent and demanding times. Today we are talking about the future of the European Union, which means that we have to reflect today's political and social reality in our home countries. We have to be open and frank. It's becoming more and more difficult to form government after general elections in our countries. Value-based discussion on essential matters and events is lacking in our discussion. Media, social media, political circumstances are getting stronger and faster. We are becoming superfluous, taking decisions decisions on tabloid-like information. Politics is entered by political parties that are not able to convey political dialogue, that only have Facebook profiles full of populism, spreading hatred, having no real political members. We see that radicalism and anti-systemic parties spreading chaos are on the rise in the European Union. Many situations are viewed by people only in black and white terms. People are communicating less and less directly, succumbing to the internet and social media, bringing a lot of sensation, fake news, without bearing any responsibility. That's today's reality that we have to address. People have learned to use their anonymity and lack of responsibility on social media. On the other hand, historic memory and experience are waning. 100 years when the First World War ended, Europe looked completely different. We had different empires, different countries on the map of Europe at that time. Many countries, many nations didn't have their destiny in their own hands. 30 years ago, we were divided by fences and walls. This is why it is so crucial to remember what it used to be like in the past. We, member states, have to, especially the new ones, have to respect the old ones, but at the same time, we have to. It has to be reciprocal. We are thankful for being a member of this huge grouping. It was unthinkable in the past. Enormous benefits brought by the European Union are often taken for granted. A few days ago, I visited Berlin, and it was a great honor for me to be received by an extremely charismatic person, Mr. Schäuble, and I could learn a lot from him as well as from his home country. And standing at the remnants of the Berlin Wall, I realized how important it is to realize and to our past. Ladies and gentlemen, stability on our continent is crucial. However, there are many open issues looming, and the idea of our responses to European citizens has to be a result of an open discussion in all the member states of the European countries, and not a result of some behind-the-scenes discussions. I believe that on EU level, we should focus on the issues that we do share, that we do have in common, such as security, the protection of external borders, the Schengen area, restriction of the flow of migrants, and common defense. Each country is unique. Greece, Italy, all the countries are unique. Everybody has something to offer into our discussion. The protection of the external border and the freedom of movement of persons is our top priority. It's a great achievement that unites Europe even today. If we go against the Schengen principles, we will go against the principles of the European Union. That's why I would like to appeal to you. Do not impose borders, internal borders, internal border controls, but try to find new modern ways of fighting illegal migration at the root. In less than 1 year's time, the United Kingdom will not be a member of the European Union any longer. With the withdrawal of a country from the European Union is an extraordinary precedent in the the history of European integration. Circumstances, arrangements of Brexit are that's why very crucial and will have an impact going behind the framework of Brexit. We are very sorry that London is withdrawing, and we will do our utmost to bring it back one day in future. At the same time, we also need to talk about unfair practices we are having in the EU. I am very happy that Slovakia, with great support of our V4 country and Mr. TAJANI, has addressed the issue of double standards and two types of quality of foods placed on the EU market. And I am very happy that we want to equalize social security systems. We want to talk with European politicians about this. Social systems have to be a pillar of the European Union. The same rights when it comes to employment are also important. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the European elections are ahead of us. And here we have to cooperate even more. We have to do our best in order to get elected leaders, charismatic leaders who would be equal partners to the US, China, and so on. The European Union is a unique project based on service to citizens. What we need to do is to specify what Brussels will be responsible for, what we will be responsible for, I mean we, national parliaments. In the last 25 years, we have made a long way. We have gained a lot of experience. What is crucial and important is to deepen dialogue between us, respect each other. Without decency, respect, and positive energy, we can't make any progress. Towards the end, I would like to appeal to you. Let's talk in an open, sincere manner, listen to each other, and be frank to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DANKO. And our third keynote speaker is Mr. Francois De Rosa. He has been member of the Parliament since 2007, and he's a president of the French National Assembly since June 2017. Before that, he served as a deputy speaker. Monsieur De Rosa, the floor is yours.
Mesdames et Messieurs les présidentes et les présidents de Parlement, Monsieur le Président du Parlement européen, je tiens d'abord à saluer notre hôte, le président Eiki.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would first of all like to greet our host speaker, Mr. Eiki NESTOR, for welcoming us here in Tallinn. It's a real jewel of our common European architecture and culture. Our Europe means a common cultural and historic heritage, but it also means that we are turned towards the future. Our heritage requires us to face certain challenges, and this is why we have very strict requirements to certain nations with which we have started the accession negotiations. Rule of law, the pluralism of media, minority rights, independent courts, these requirements are very important for us, and they also apply to us in the European Union. We cannot build a common future if we do not agree on the values that unite us. And on the basis of such common values, the European Union was established so that never again fascism, communism, dictatorship would occur. In order to cope in today's world, we need to stand united, and the shared sovereignty helps us to maintain our national sovereignty, and this has to go through the control by the national parliaments who represent the interests and diversity of their nations. The working group on subsidiarity and proportionality led by Frans Timmermans enables us to increase the role of national parliaments in the legislative process in the European Union. I would not like to oppose European sovereignty to national sovereignty. I think they're complementary. The European Union is actually the only way to avoid marginalization to which we could be led through the demographic situation, to the decrease of our economic clout in the world. In 2014, among the top 10 economies in the world, there were only 4 European economies, and in 2050 only Germany would be in top 10, ranking the 9th, but the European Union as a whole would remain the 4th economic power in the world. An integrated Europe for us mostly means a Europe that protects our nations, that protects our security. Secondly, Europe mobilizes and leads the way to other countries in the fight against climate change. This means a fight for our survival as a human race. Integrated Europe also tries to reconcile humanity and humaneness and firmness in managing the flows of migration. We know that this pressure is going to increase as the population in Africa is going to increase threefold in the next 40 years. Europe should be able to speak in using one voice while addressing our partners, the Americans, but also in addressing Russia or China. Europe should, without naivety, be able to protect its interests because we should not expect any mercy from our competitors in the globalization of trade. And this is why we should try to support our companies as much as possible when they're facing steel dumping in China, or when they're facing tough competition with such huge corporations like Google or Apple. Such an integration in the European Union is possible also with other countries outside the European Union. And we should also discuss Europe in several formats. We already see this in existence in the form of the Schengen zone or the Euro area. This is a way to move forward in certain areas, and every country can make its choice. In the defense domain, we find that our integration should be even bigger as it is now. Our American partners already for years have been calling on us to increase our defense spending, and I think they're right to do so. The times when we were able to decrease our defense spending and reap the benefits of peace is over. We see that there are a lot more challenging. We see that Russia is becoming ever more aggressive. Also, we see the emergence of new regional powers in Iran, in Turkey, also in Saudi Arabia, and we also see the jihadist movements in Afghanistan, but also in Africa. We're talking about this in Estonia, where over half a century the nation lost its freedom.
et de conserver une industrie de défense sur notre continent.
I find that the European defense policy should be able should make it possible for us to remain autonomous and to maintain our defense industry. We should not cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. We should try to work with other countries, with other parts of the world. In many areas, such as in asylum policy or in the digital efforts, we should stand united. Airbus or Galileo, they are common European projects that we should feel proud of. We see that France is moving ahead in this field. We are engaged in shipbuilding together with Italy, but also in other fields, in defense industry, we have cooperation projects with other European nations. This is something we can bring forward only together with the others. We should go by the decisions that are approved by the people living in Europe, and of course we should not go against the will of the people. We have had these discussions before the presidential elections in France, and we see that the results are clear. People were in favor of going ahead with the European project. We should review the European project, but we should do it together with the European nations. This is also illustrated by the consultations that are ongoing in France that were launched by President Macron last week. Of course, we have very different opinions, and we should be able to engage in honest and frank discussions. The dialogue is necessary. It's one of the foundations of the democratic order in the European Union, and I hope that we will be able to continue with our dialogue also in France. You're most welcome to visit us. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsieur de RUGY. Dear friends, my idea is that now it's wise to have a coffee break and family photo and then start with debate. Are you agree with me? So we start 16:55 in the same room, and before the honorable speakers have a possibility to have a coffee, they must be in the family photo. We don't serve coffee without family photo. The family photo will be taken outside the conference room, and our staff will show you where it is. Thank you.